Do you pour out your heart and soul on your online videos only to have a mere handful of people click and watch them? If you want to catch the attention that your hard work deserves, stick around and you'll find out. Before people hear a single word that you say, they encounter two things: your thumbnail and your title. If you don't have an engaging thumbnail for your video, if you don't have an engaging title for a video, people will never click on it in the first place. And it doesn't matter if you're the next Billy Graham, no one's going to see your video. So the first thing we need to do is choose a title that attracts people. So how are we going to title our message so people are going to be scrolling by and say, hey, I want to find out more about that? Well, the first thing is we need to choose a title for the message that's relevant to the content. So we don't want to be putting, a title like burning cars or something like that, thinking, oh, people are going to find that interesting, to trick people to clicking your content. That's not going to work out nearly as well as you think it is. So on YouTube, for example, when people get tricked, they will only watch for a few seconds and then they jump right off. The YouTube algorithms pick up on this and they will realize that, oh, you might have an interesting thumbnail, but this is not an interesting video, and so it will stop suggesting your video. So you will be penalized by YouTube or Facebook or even Instagram when you do that. You want to have a title that explains what you're actually talking about. You also don't want to make some kind of an obscure reference that is maybe in your message, but people aren't automatically going to know what you're talking about. So you don't want to be saying something about, dry bones or Valley of the Dry Bones or anything like that. That may not attract people's attention in the way you think it might. Also, you don't want to just put in like Romans chapter 4 as your title. Yeah, I get it. You might be preaching from Romans chapter 4, but you got to think about it. When Paul wrote Romans chapter 4, he wasn't just trying to think of filler to go between chapter 3 and chapter 5. He actually meant something by this. So if you're titling your message, you need to be titling based on what this message is really about, not just its verse. So a way of looking at this is you could do that one of three different ways. One is make your title be something about a problem you're going to solve. So once again, Paul was trying to solve some kind of problem specific to the Romans. When he wrote to the Ephesians, he was trying to solve some sort of problem specific to the Ephesians. So very often a biblical text was written in the very first place with the author's heart intending to solve some kind of a problem. So you can put that problem in your title. What problem are you solving? Is it people's marriages? Is it a parenting issue? Is it finances? Is it people's identity in Christ? You need to be putting something like, what is the problem your message going to solve, and put that in your title. Another thing you can put in your title instead of a problem to solve is maybe a benefit that's going to be offered. So Jesus was a master of this when he offered, for example, at the woman of the well, that if you take water from him, you'll never have to go to the well again. Now, you might argue that Jesus is using a little bit of clickbait there, but what are you offering? Very often the biblical authors is offering some benefit in this teaching to you, that it's going to help you in some specific way. Let people know in your title how this is going to help them in their lives. A third way of doing this would be revealing a mystery to be solved. Something that maybe they didn't know, something that's being revealed. Could be about heaven, could be about hell, could be about any number of things. But put something like that in the title where you're revealing some kind of a mystery, and the people watching are thinking like, I'd like to find out more about that. I've always wondered about that. Those are good ways of building your titles. When you write your title, you want to write with powerful emotional language, because people click on things because they have an emotional tie to them. And you also want to make sure you're using language anybody could understand. So plain English. Christianese gobbledygook is not going to increase your views. When you release your videos online, you have the potential of reaching a far wider audience than you do on Sunday morning at church. Far more non-Christians are going to be able to watch your videos, and your own people are far more likely to share your videos, especially if you can speak and have your title in plain English. Once again, we don't want anything about valleys of dry bones in our titles. We want something that people can actually understand. And then lastly, when choosing a title that attracts, limit yourself to 6 words. Maybe 10 if you have to, but we want that to be a short, crisp, punchy title that gets to the point. Now, big part of this is when people are actually looking at your thumbnail, 70% of web traffic is done on a mobile phone. And so they're going to be looking at a little tiny little image. And if you've got 2 sentences for your title, they're not even going to be able to read that. So we want short titles, 6 words, maybe 10, so you can put that in a text box right beside in the title so they can read that easily. The more words, the smaller the letters are going to be. So we want to trim that right down. Now, once we have our title, then we actually have to shoot our thumbnails. Now, thumbnails that attract the most attention are thumbnails that have a human face on them, preferably yours. So those are the ones that are going to be attracting people's natural attention, is if they can see a picture of a person there. Preferably sort of a head and shoulder shot. So closer than the distance that I'm shooting this. I'm shooting this video at sort of a conversational distance, about 5 feet away if we were sitting at a coffee table or having a conversation like that. You want this to be a little bit closer in than that. So we want sort of a video that's framed, the picture that's framed sort of like this, a little bit closer in. What you want to do ideally is what we call batch shooting your thumbnails. That means go out with a friend or coworker or whatever and have them shoot several dozen pictures at once. So you're going to be shooting several dozen headshots with you with different expressions, and bring a change of clothes. When I shoot my videos, I'll bring 2, 3, maybe even 4 changes of shirts and do similar sort of poses, and then change that shirt, put on a different one, do the same thing. Change that shirt, put in a different one, do the same thing. That way you'll have a big stock of images that you can use for your thumbnails, and you're not going to have to reshoot thumbnails every single time. Something else you're going to want to do when you shoot those thumbnails is make sure that your background is a simple background or complete blank background. So when I shoot my thumbnails, I just shoot it with the background of a black curtain. Then I can cut that out and I can put anything in there. If you've got a busy background, people's eyes aren't necessarily going to know that they're supposed to be focusing on you, and they can be distracted by the background. And if you're going to be layering a bunch of text here, the background will take away from your text. So we want as simple background as possible when we're shooting those videos. Another thing we're going to want to do when we're shooting those thumbnail images of yourself is use proper lighting techniques. Now, if you haven't already watched my video on how do you light your set, click on it right now. I've got it down in the description. You should watch that. Because if your thumbnail photo is bland or washed out or visually uninteresting because of the lighting, people aren't going to click it. You've got a vital message that people need to hear. Make sure that you've taken the time and care to make sure the lighting of that is going to be ideal. I don't know what you're going to be speaking about, but people are going to want to connect to emotions. So when you shoot the videos, you're going to be over on the right-hand side of the frame. Because we're going to be putting text here in this spot. Now, why are you going to be on this side of the frame rather than this side of the frame? Well, I will tell you. On YouTube, YouTube will naturally place on all the thumbnails, right in this section here, a timestamp. So if you've got a whole bunch of text here for your title, that timestamp is going to obscure your title. Not only that, YouTube also will put, if you mouse over a thumbnail, it'll put up a whole bunch of different icons up here. That's going to interfere with the title. People aren't going to know what you're talking about. Where if you put yourself here and your text to your title on this side, well, then having a timestamp here, that doesn't really matter. It's not going to make much of a difference. People are still going to be able to see your face. So we want to make sure you're on this side of the frame. And from your own perspective, imagine the text being over your right shoulder. When you're watching it, it's not my right shoulder, it's going to be my left shoulder, but from your perspective, it's going to be your right shoulder. But you're going to have your text here, and you're going to want to be on this side of the frame. Lastly, when we're composing that thumbnail, remember we want to have this image as simple as possible, so close up of you, big text. because people are going to be looking at it on their phones. They're going to be looking at a teeny tiny little image. So we want this image to be simple, not a confusing detailed background, but a simple background, simple image, simple text. Even when we're choosing that text, we want to be using a simple font. No fancy frills or scripts or something like that. Very, very simple, easy to see, easy to read, high contrast kind of font. If you do that, you're going to be creating some video thumbnails that people are going to be interested in. If you want to look at some other YouTubers who are very successful, look at these examples here, where you can see that a lot of these videos and a lot of their thumbnails are following the same format that I've just described. You're seeing the face, you're seeing the variety of expressions, you're seeing large and identifiable text. These are the videos that are going to get the most clicks. Pastor, you can stand on your head, juggling fire, preaching your heart out, but if people don't click on that thumbnail, if people aren't interested in that title, they're gonna miss out on a message that could change their life. Hey, if this made any sense to you, click down, like and subscribe. If you think it's a benefit to somebody you know, another pastor, hey, feel free to share this. See you next time.